What is going on, everybody? My name is OgdenFootball, and I'm bringing my first ever video on this channel. I'm extremely excited to launch up this channel for the 2016 NFL season. Today I'll be rating my top 10 NFL quarterbacks going into the 2016 NFL season. I think it'll be a great video to help you guys get to know me a little bit better and my opinions on the NFL's most important position. So without further ado, I would like to get into two quarterbacks before my top 10 list that I left off my list that a lot of people might be wondering why they are off the list. So the first quarterback, most surprising one, Tony Romo. Obviously, he only played a few games last year, but what most people base their Tony Romo rating on is his 2014 NFL season, and as amazing as he played that year, an MVP caliber season, no doubt. Even though he wasn't great last year, mostly due to injury, this is a big part of this list is how injury prone a player can be. Obviously, you don't want a quarterback that is always going down with an injury. And to be honest, and I know it's not a popular opinion among Cowboys fans, I think this guy is one bad hit away from just being done for his career. So I really had to leave Tony Romo off my list. If I were an NFL GM, he would not be a top 10 quarterback I would want going into 2016 NFL season, just because I don't think there's a chance he's playing 16 games this year. I'm sorry, I just don't. Another guy I have outside my top 10 is Blake Bortles. He's probably not even 11th or 12th on this list, to be honest. This guy, I just put him on this outside my list column because he was number 4 in fantasy last year. I know there are a lot of people that just play fantasy and don't really look into the stats that don't have anything to do with fantasy football, but this guy scored a lot of touchdowns in garbage time last year, picked up a lot of yards in garbage time. If you look up what he did in the fourth quarter, is absurd, and pretty much whatever he did in the fourth quarter was while the Jaguars were trailing, so you can't really just say, oh, he's clutch. No, that wasn't the case at all last year. He just was down a lot and just kept on hurling the ball down the field to, Allen Robinson, Allen Hurns. But let's actually get into the top 10 list. Number 10, I've got Andy Dalton. The NFL fans love to make fun of this guy for, being terrible in the playoffs, and I kind of agree with them that it's pretty funny to pick on Andy Dalton because he can't seem to win a playoff game. Nothing seems to go their way. Bengals are kind of turning into new Cowboys in that way. But this guy's just really good in the regular season. He was an MVP candidate for the first half of the NFL season last year. He got hurt in the second half of the NFL season. He only played 13 games, but he helped lead his team to a 12-4 season and a division title. So you got to give this guy a lot of credit that he manages to do that. And if he were to play in the playoff game last year, maybe they would have beaten the Steelers. You never know. Because obviously A.J. McCarron almost beat them, so obviously Andy Dalton's a little bit of an upgrade over A.J. McCarron, so a lot of people think that he would have won that game. But mechanically, he was better under the blitz last year. I remember one of the biggest criticisms of Andy Dalton in the years past is that he would not be able to perform well while the blitz is on the way, and he really changed it up last year. He was much better, much more composed under pressure, so you gotta like that about him. And something I'd like to just put in real quick about Andy Dalton is that this guy is actually a very good mobile quarterback. A lot of people don't seem to realize what the kind of feet this guy has. He's not Russell Wilson or anything, but this guy is definitely a quarterback that can move and pick up first down when needed or pick up a touchdown. So number 9 on my list, Andrew Luck. If I made this list a couple of years ago, it probably would have, or definitely would have been a lot higher. And I know he struggled a lot last season due to injury, but he threw 12 interceptions in 7 games last year. That's absurdly terrible. I mean, you got to take something away from the guy for doing that. He threw 16 picks the year before. If you want to give the guy a pass in the first few years of his career, like years 2 and 3. About throwing picks, he's just developing, yeah, whatever. But he's still throwing picks at an alarming rate nowadays, and it doesn't seem to be going away. So I just don't think his decision making is all that great at times. I know his offensive line isn't the best in the league, but you still got to make better decisions than that. But I think he'll bounce back a little bit this year, and hopefully he'll improve that interception rating because this guy is at a point in his career where he's got all the skills to be in a Hall of Famer career, but at this point he's kind of just overrated because of what because he really cannot get anywhere in the playoffs at this point in his career. He's kind of at a dead end. He cannot beat the New England Patriots. It's kind of embarrassing seeing the Colts face the Patriots at this point. But I know his defense isn't the best. His offensive line isn't the best. But a lot of people have high expectations for this guy, and I just don't think you should put high expectations on Andrew Luck quite yet in his NFL career because he's still got a little ways to go. Number 8, I've got Phillip Rivers, an extremely underrated quarterback. I love this guy because of how tough he is. He played the entire game on a torn ACL. I don't think he's ever missed an NFL start before. And he's kind of gotten screwed throughout his career. I mean, he's got put into a terrible spot on the Chargers. Throughout his career, he's always played with terrible defense, terrible offensive line, not so great wide receivers. They're starting to come onto the scene a little bit more. They've got a better pass defense than they've ever had. And they're starting to get some pieces for wide receivers like Keenan Allen. He's starting to turn into like a top 10 wide receiver almost. But you saw Phillip Rivers kind of fall off the edge last year when Keenan Allen went down. So hopefully Keenan Allen can stay healthy this year and Phillip Rivers can lead the Chargers to a possibility of making the playoffs, which is a little bit far-fetched, but it would be very interesting to see Rivers return to the playoffs. Number 7, I have Russell Wilson. He's Super Bowl champion, a leader. He's great eluding the pocket. Very, very interesting and fun player to watch. This guy, he's very promising. A lot of people probably think he should be in the top 5 or somewhere around that range with the finish he had in the second half last year. But I just can't put him in the top 5 yet because mostly because of some concerns with the playoffs the last couple of years. He really has gone away with it a little bit in the playoffs, mostly against the Packers 2 years ago with the whole dropped onside kick. He should have lost that game. They should have never even gone in that Super Bowl. And last year, he only put up 10 points against the Minnesota Vikings. I know it was really cold out and everything, but 10 points just isn't enough, and he got bailed out by that missed field goal. So I'm just going to have to see a little bit more out of Russell Wilson, but he's definitely got potential to be moved up in my top 5 next year just because how talented he is. And I know this guy can perform under the pressure. I mean, like I said, he's won a Super Bowl. So he's definitely at that talent level, but he's just got a little ways to go. Number 6, I've got Carson Palmer. This guy has done pretty much everything you could ask him to since he got released by the Raiders a couple of years ago. He threw for 4,600 yards last year and 35 touchdowns. He's helped rejuvenate Larry Fitzgerald. He's helped John Brown and Michael Floyd kind of develop into good young wide receivers for the Arizona Cardinals. He plays in a great situation with that Cardinals offensive line and Bruce Arians as head coach, David Johnson behind him in the backfield. I'm very excited to see what the Cardinals can do this year, and I think Carson Palmer is kind of a leader of this offense, this great offense that many people are expecting to make a deep playoff run this year. But the one criticism I really have of Carson Palmer is that he has not been able to perform in the playoffs to date. He's thrown 5 touchdowns, 7 receptions. I think it was only played 4 career playoff games. And he's kind of getting up there. So you would hope that this guy would have a little more playoff experience at this point in his career, especially for a team that's looking to make a deep run of the playoffs. And a lot of people are saying this guy choked last year in the playoffs and that Larry Fitzgerald kind of carried them to that victory against the Packers in overtime. So we'll have to see what this guy can do. If he proves the critics wrong and he performs in the playoffs this year, then he'll definitely enter my top 5 with the skill, with the talent he's shown over the past couple of years. There's no doubt in my mind he'll be in the top 5. And number 5, got Ben Roethlisberger, 2-time Super Bowl champion, number 1 quarterback ranked by Pro Football Focus. This guy is been pretty amazing throughout his NFL career and is probably at his best right now, which is pretty crazy to think about that he's still getting better with this great offense he plays in. Some flaws I found with him is that he throws a little too many interceptions. He threw 16 picks in only 12 games last year. I was very shocked when I saw that statistic. I didn't think Kiska was a guy that turned the ball over so much. I thought he was one of the smarter quarterbacks in the NFL, but 16 picks in 12 games, just an alarming rate. Can't be throwing that many picks. And another flaw I found with him, he plays with Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown, so I guess you really can't find that a flaw with Roethlisberger, but I'm sure you ask any NFL quarterback and they'll tell you they'll love to play with the best running back or argue the best running back and argue the best wide receiver in the game in Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown, and play under a great coach like Mike Tom with a decent offensive line. So you could easily argue he's got the best situation around him right now, even though he's got a pretty terrible defense. But I just mean like players that play on the field with him anyways. And I think this guy really will burst onto the scene, I think he's a lock Hall of Fame right now anyways, but he'll really set his legacy straight if he can go and win a Super Bowl over the next few years. Number 4, I've got Tom Brady. A lot of people think this guy should easily be in the top 3, like no questioning he should be top 2 or something like that. But I don't know. I've never been a big Tom Brady fan. I actually live up in the New England area, so I hear all about this guy like he's the second coming or something like that. But I'm just not sold on this guy quite yet. Just from watching him all the time, it kind of just seems like he's throwing these basically slant passes or screen passes, out routes, stuff like that. Or if he does throw it down the field, it's to the best tight end in the NFL. So I don't know. Just from the eye test, I don't really see the same talent as guys in my top 3. I will get into that right now. Number 3, I've got Aaron Rodgers. This guy is just crazy to watch. Everybody loves watching him. Very exciting to watch. He throws incredible passes. He had the 2 Hail Marys last year. 2 of my favorite football moments of all time, seeing those plays. They were insane to watch. They were surreal. He's great escaping the blitz. Also, getting guys to jump off sides and, flinging it downfield for a quick, easy 6. And something I really like about Rodgers is how few interceptions he throws. He's very smart with the football. He doesn't force anything. He always has his interceptions in the single digits, which is something I love to see out of a quarterback. But, some flaws with him. He kind of looked like he got a little exposed to that Jordan Nelson last year. Obviously, any quarterback would struggle without their top wide receiver the entire NFL season. But a lot of people are saying that Aaron Rodgers is a product of Jordan Nelson, which, that's pretty absurd to say. I mean, this guy is definitely one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. You can't argue that. But yeah, you'd like to see a little bit more, and it's a bit concerning that last year is probably his worst season in his NFL career without Jordan Nelson. Number 2, I've got Drew Brees. This guy is extremely underappreciated. I don't think people realize just how good this guy is, and it's probably mostly because he's not been to the playoffs in the last couple of years, which I'll get into in a second. But first, some pros about this guy. Most impressive statistic that you'll see on this guy is how many yards he throws for on a per-season basis. He's thrown for 4,000 or 5,000 yard seasons in the NFL career. Guys like Brady, Rodgers, Manning, they've all thrown for only one. There have actually only been 8 5,000 yard seasons thrown by anybody throughout NFL history. And he came up 130 yards short last year. If he had played 16 games, he would have easily had that. So you could easily say this guy has thrown for 5 out of the 9 5,000 yard seasons in NFL history, which is kind of absurd to think about. And he also plays with not great wide receivers. Best wide receiver is probably Brandon Cooks, who's just a slot guy at the end of the day. He's played with Jimmy Graham in the past, but he still rolled with Ben Watson last year and still had a pretty good season. So we'll have to see what he can do with Coby Fleener this year at that tight end position. But the Saints overall, they're just a mess right now. I don't think Brees has a chance to return to the playoffs under this current roster right now, which is very unfortunate because, he had that magical 2011 or 2010 Super Bowl run that I love to watch. I wish this guy wasn't going to be out of the league in a few years because he is getting up there. But, Drew Brees, great quarterback. Love watching him. I think he's very underappreciated, and I think he's absolutely still a top 3 quarterback in the NFL. And another statistic I'd like to throw in there real quick for all the Brady lovers out there is that Brees is actually 3-1 all time versus Brady. He should be 4-0 if you've seen the game that happened a couple of years ago. The refs didn't exactly give the Saints a fair whistle in that game. No, I'm not a Saints fan, but just from an outsider's perspective, that is, the Saints kind of got screwed in that game. So you could say that Brees is basically 4-0 against Tom Brady in his career. People don't talk about that much. The Brady lovers always bringing up, how great Brady is against Manning his NFL career. Well, you got to look at, if you're going to do that, you got to look at guys like Drew Brees and how good they are in big time games. But enough with Drew Brees. Let's talk about number 1. I'm sure you all know who it is. The NFL MVP, Cam Newton. He went 15-1 last year with 45 total combined touchdowns. This guy is incredible to watch. He's easily becoming one of my favorite players to see play in the NFL. I love his confidence, his swagger about him. How he'll celebrate the points that he gets, the first down he gets. I think it's good for the game. I think it's fun to watch. Giving the ball to the little kids in the stands after a score. It's just he's a very likable guy. I know a lot of people think he's arrogant, whatever. I think that'll go away as he grows with age, because he's still pretty young at this point, which is pretty exciting to think about, actually, that this guy is going to get even better after his breakout season last year. And he doesn't really have any weapons around him. He's got Greg Olsen, but other than that, you gotta wonder what else this guy had last year. He had Ted Ginn Jr. and Philly Brown. Those were like his top 2 wide receivers. So, those guys obviously are at the very, very low end of NFL wide receiving corps. So, I'm very excited to see what he can do with Kelvin Benjamin back this year. The only flaw I really found with Cam Newton is that, he hasn't done that before, what he did last year. He went 5-8-1 the previous year. So we'll have to make sure that he can stay consistent and, put up a near MVP, if not a back-to-back MVP award next year, as he burst on the scene last year. So that concludes my top 10 list. I'll make sure to put the top 10 list in the description below if you missed any names on there. Make sure you comment your top 10 list below. I'd love to see your list of your arguments as to why somebody should be higher or lower. I'll make sure to respond to that. So thank you all for watching, and as always, it's been OgdenFootball. Until next time.